welcome to today's webinar. We're excited to talk about what it looks like for y'all to all manage your lien rights process, also more efficiently, save time. I'm guessing there are a different number of reasons we have people on this webinar today. So you might already have a process for creating and sending notices, and it might take you a lot of time, right? Some people are doing have a process in place to protect their lien rights, but maybe they're printing things off, they're tracking deadlines themselves. It can be a very cumbersome process. Or you might, send out a notice late sometime. It happens. We're all human. We all have lives. Things can get crazy. And I know a lot of these notices are time sensitive. And maybe you're here because you're exploring ways to protect lien rights more regularly, or maybe you have a completely different reason for attending. But no matter why you're here, I can guarantee that you'll leave today's sessions knowing exactly some steps that you can take to protect those lien rights more efficiently and manage your paperwork in less time. Before moving forward, I did mention this earlier, we are recording this, so you're going to get a link to the recording. I believe it'll be sent out tomorrow if you'd like to watch it again or share with your team. And then, of course, as I mentioned, if you guys have any questions, throw them in the Q&A box. We're going to have some time set aside at the end, and we'll be able to address all those questions here. So just a quick introduction. We have Alex and Laura here with us as well today. I am a senior payment expert here at LevelSet. Been here for almost 4 years, going 3.5 years. I work with business like y'all's to help you get paid faster, without payment problems. And then co-hosting with me today, like I said, is Laura and Alex here. If y'all want to go ahead and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll go. I'm Laura Williams. I'm our strategic client success manager here at LevelSet. I've been here about 3.5 years as well. I'm based in Houston, Texas, but right now I'm coming to you from Valparaiso, Indiana, right on the tip of Lake Michigan down here. And I work with our large enterprise national customers.
And my name is Alex Kohler. I am a senior customer success manager here at LevelSet, coming to you live from New Orleans, Louisiana. I have been on the customer success team at LevelSet here 5 years next week. And I work with a lot of contractors and suppliers, just making sure that they're staying protected on their jobs and getting that money they've earned in a timely fashion.
Awesome. Thank you all. We're going to go ahead and now just jump right into it, get the party started. First, I just want to introduce a little bit more about LevelSet. First, a quick overview of LevelSet. For those of you attending that maybe it's your first webinar, maybe there's not so much about LevelSet. First off, we all know that the construction industry can present all sorts of problems when it comes to getting paid. Or there's a lot of red tape, right? The reason why people have to protect their lien rights or send these notices is because of the red tape that the industry brings. And LevelSet, we're here to make all that more efficient. We're here to help you get paid faster. Our lien rights management software helps you track mechanics lien deadlines, send out notices, verify job site information, be notified if a payment alerts arise. Say if another contractor were to file a lien on a project, you're going to be notified. We even provide additional services like construction attorneys and other legal services. And then additionally, we have a bunch of resources and information on our website. And even information about contractors and their payment histories, or specific projects where maybe liens have been filed. So I just wanted to give that brief introduction. I know it's a lot. We do a lot. It is kind of like a whole toolbox to help you at the end of the day protect yourself and get paid faster. That's really the common theme here. So just to jump right into the presentation, with any operational processes, there's always multiple ways you can go about your task. Some ways more efficient than the others, right? Obviously. And in managing your lien rights paperwork is the same. And there are a lot of ways you can tackle this process, but what we're sharing today are the 3 ways that customers have found are the most efficient for creating, sending, and tracking lien rights paperwork. The first is sending notices on all jobs. As you know, you never really know when a payment issue is going to occur. You never know. So we're big proponents of just sending that notice on all those jobs. And maybe it's not so much when we say notice, maybe it's not a threatening document at all. It could be a simple preliminary notice, the general term preliminary notice that basically just sets the right expectations, lets all the parties know that you're on the job, and maybe what your process is to payment. And as we know, in some states, which I see, we had a couple of people in here. I know we had someone from California. They're probably familiar with the that 20-day preliminary notice, which is required. And then going into the second point here is just having access to the right job site materials. It's the job site details, sorry. So the owner, the lender, the legal property description, all that correct information. And then additionally, say if an issue comes up on that project, say if a lien's filed on that project, maybe you're on a commercial job with a lot of contractors and suppliers and a lien's filed, we want you to have that information. And then last is just having, being able to have those productive conversations with your customers. We see that people that send these notices, that there's a flow of paperwork and information being sent on these jobs, and our customers that have all the right information, they're able to have productive conversations and really help not only themselves get paid, but help everyone get paid, help their vendors get paid. So that's just a brief overview of the steps that we've seen, again, that how people are really saving time. And then again, LevelSet helps assist in streamlining that whole process. So just to talk about that first notice, setting notices on every job. If you've attended one of our webinars about, we've actually hosted a webinar called Why It Pays to Send Notices on Every Job, then you probably know the importance of notices. But would you consider, you look at that and you're like, would you consider sending notices on every job be a time saver, right? It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but actually when you make the notices to send notices on every job, you're not wasting time to try and determine which jobs need to send notices and which ones don't. So, maybe I talk to a lot of people and maybe it's, oh, we don't send notices on this customer, and we don't send notices on this amount or this type of job or whatever the criteria is, rather than having to look through that and go over that to then determine to send a notice. We see that it makes the most time saving sense just to go ahead and get that notice out on every job. And again, it might not be like a threatening document or notice at all. It could be just a simple, hey, we're on this job. We're here to get paid. So the question is really about how to do a lot more in less time. Again, one way to do this is to use like a pay-per notice service. So there are a lot of services out there where you can, pay per notice and get it taken care of for you. I'm curious. I'm just actually, could we, does anybody here in the chat, I'm just curious of a roll call of any people that have used notice services in the past, maybe not LevelSet, but just like a notice service. Raise hand. Yeah, if you just want to go ahead and raise your hand. I'm just a little bit curious about that. Cool. A lot. Great. So awesome, Elizabeth. And that's great. That's awesome that y'all have already taken those steps to make it easier on yourselves, right? Those services they're great companies. They help contractors with this process, and that's great that you are, Elizabeth, that you're taking initiative and doing this as well. And this is why, and that's kind of why you're here with me today, right? Obviously, because you want to learn more about that. You want to take this initiative, and you want to and save time with it. The number one most efficient way to send notices on your jobs, really, what we've seen is to hook it up with your accounting software, with the lien rights software. And with LevelSet, I know you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's what you guys do. It definitely is. That's something that we've seen as actually saves a lot of time. You know, whether you have information coming from QuickBooks directly into, you know, into a software to help send these out, you can literally just streamline all your paperwork straight from there. You get full control without, you know, all the baggage and paperwork that comes along with doing it yourself. And that is something that LevelSet does here. And I'm not here to like just push specifically LevelSet, just talking about in general. You know, we've seen that people that do have their softwares hooked up with some kind of lien rights software, they're able to really streamline that paperwork. So back to the point, you're probably thinking, you know, that sounds great, but doesn't sending more notices take more time? Not necessarily, because it's just going to be flowing straight from your accounting software. So just to, okay, and that's just summarizes the point I just mentioned. So, you know, no more back and forth between like spreadsheets and calendars. I talked to a lot of people. It's crazy. I've seen, I talked to one person and they had a whiteboard with like Post-it notes, and they would like remove the Post-it notes, and it just, you know, it got messy. So no more going back and forth, whether it's between a whiteboard or a spreadsheet or calendars. You know, no more manual data entry. You don't have to plug in all the information on every notice. You know, and no more trips to the post office, right? No one wants to do that. I don't think anyone enjoys going to the post office. I know you guys like getting out of the office. Who doesn't? But I don't know if anybody wants to spend that time in the post office. And Laura, one thing to talk, Laura, I'd like for you to mention, you're working with our customers who have some of the largest job volumes, you know, working with larger companies, you know, all day, every day. I'm sure you have a million stories to share about the impact, you know, of adding in some automation to the notice process, you know, how it's affected people's businesses. Can you share? I'd like to hear some insight on, you know, from you as well on that.
Yeah. I would say 99% of the companies I work for, and these are vendors, these are suppliers, subs, they are using the automation tool in LevelSet to automatically send or tee up their notices for them. And this is exceptional because these are large national companies, right? There's hundreds of credit managers or credit associates. There are hundreds of branches and locations that supplies are being sold from, and they're able to basically, those individual credit managers are basically able to automatically have those notices sent, and they can see just that. They don't have to worry. If they're just in California, they don't have to worry about what's going on elsewhere. So it helps them very easily get those notices out so that they can spend their time elsewhere in their day, instead of having to wait in line at the post office or you know, deal with their customer reactions. It's an expectation that they've set, and it's their business practice, process, and preference to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you work with some of the highest volume customers.
Yeah, and when I was speaking, I'm thinking of one of the largest national plumbing and lighting suppliers, primarily in the nation. And so chances are, if you're in town, they've got a store. So yeah, it's hundreds of thousands of projects a year, or jobs you might call them, that are coming into LevelSet that are being noticed and managed automatically to protect those lien rights.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we will, we're going to do a insight into the actual program. I'll jump into that once we kind of talk about all these points. I'll jump into LevelSet and show everyone just like a brief overview quickly, so you can get a little bit more of an understanding of what we're all talking about here. But no, appreciate you sharing that with us, Laura. And then the next you know, point that we mentioned, the 3 points here to save time, is, you know, having a good research process. So maybe if you're working residential projects, you're working direct with the homeowner, you know, you probably know maybe who the homeowner is, right? But some people, they work on large jobs where it's a commercial project, or maybe they're a subcontractor, or maybe they're even a subcontractor. Maybe they're a supplier. I know we have some suppliers or vendors in here as well. And the one thing that the next thing you can do to really save time with sending all this paperwork is to making sure you always have the right information and that you have it quickly and easy, right? You know, tracking down certain things like job site address, legal property description, owner and lender. You know, it's important that obviously that you have the correct information for the valid notices, but also that you're not having to spend a lot of time finding that. So there are a few things, ways to do this. Most people I speak with grab property info from like the contract, or they get it maybe from their sales team, or they actually call their GC to get the owner or lender info. You know, here's the catch though, whether or not doing that takes a ton of time. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We've seen that when you don't have the job info validated for accuracy, there's about a 78% chance of having incorrect or maybe just incomplete job information. And basically, we all know with that, it's going to effectively invalidate a contractor's lien rights if they don't have the correct info on that notice, especially if it's a required document. You know, really talking here when you have to send a required maybe preliminary notice and there's wrong information on that. So whatever time you spent trying to protect your payments, on that, you know, whatever time you spent trying to protect your payments on that job is for nothing, basically. So another perk of doing your lien rights paperwork using a software is the instant project research verification, basically already baked into the software itself. So as far as time saving goes, you have to love instant. Basically, you send a notice, you create a document, it's going to instantly verify that property owner information. And then also we do have a team. Most companies do. LevelSet, we have a team, we call them Scout Research, where they actually are going to look over the information and find any missing information themselves. We will actually pick up the phone and find the lender information for you. But we have an interesting, there's some pretty creative ways we go about finding this information. But a lot of it we can also verify instantly. So, and Alex, who's here with us, can you share an example of a customer, maybe you've worked with that used to spend a ton of time on job research? I think I know you mentioned to me before, and what their life is now that they're able to basically just check a box and the property description is verified.
Yeah, for sure. And like Liam said, when it comes to research and confirming data on a job, there's unfortunately so much room for error that can occur. And a lot of times people come to us is either because they're wearing a ton of hats and need help taking stuff off their plate, or they have a proactive process in place, but something like that happened where something slipped through the cracks. Maybe they weren't able to confirm some hidden vendor information on a job or something like that, and a lien is now challenged in court. And it actually brings a specific supplier that I work with based out of California to mind. They have been using us for preliminary notices for a couple of years now. And before that, they were spending hours each week trying to compose these notices in-house, trying to do research up the chain to confirm that job data. And it just so happened that they weren't actually sending these notices to lenders on the jobs. And as I'm sure many of you know, in California, if there is a lender on that job, they are required to receive that preliminary notice at the start of the job. And since they weren't including this lender on those notices, they didn't have full lien rights on a lot of those jobs and weren't necessarily protected from start to finish there. So really key to make sure that you are confirming that data. And that's something that our research team is able to assist with, like Liam said, by accessing county databases to confirm some of that job site data, calling customers up the chain just to make sure that we can confirm that data, make sure that everything is proper in there. And one of the really big benefits of our Scout research team as well is if you do have any questions about any of the data or anything arises, you can communicate with our team directly through the LevelSet platform. And they're able to help show you where that data came from and just confirm any questions that you may have there to help streamline that.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. And and this slide here is just basically kind of summarizing that as well. So going into the next point we talked about. So just to, summarize, we talked about setting notices on all the jobs. We heard from Laura about her, higher volume customers that she works with that are saving a lot of time. The second point, which we just spoke about, was just the research component, having all that information available. Another thing too about the research that I do want to touch on that wasn't mentioned is we're going to LevelSet. What we do is we're going to track your projects for any also potential issues. So if a lien is maybe filed on a project that you're on, or if, whatever, if there's any actual problems, mainly specifically with liens or, intent to liens or whatever, just slow payment, we're going to notify you so you can have that information. So not only information about the owner, the lender, and the legal partnerships, all that good stuff. We're also going to tell you about any potential issues. And even tell you maybe how that contractor pays. If you're working with a general contractor, we have contractor profiles. So we're going to tell you, how that contractor pays as well. So, that really goes into the last point, and it's being able to communicate with customers efficiently. The last thing I want to touch on is, being able to have those productive conversations with your customers when maybe a payment issue arises, or not having to go back and forth about any, like maybe overdue payments, like sending emails saying, hey, where's this payment at? Oh, it's been 30 days. It's been 15 days, whatever it is, being able to send those reminders. I even do that. I know no one likes to hound for payment. I totally understand that. I don't like to hound my brother to pay me back on when he owes me money, but you have to do it, right? Calling and emailing and trying to find about payments, or maybe explaining what you did on a job. Not only that takes time away from your day, but I like I said, I know it can be frustrating. So you can cut down on the time you spend on payment conversations with customers by creating that streamlined process. And creating a better customer experience around payments, whether it's sending these notices, having reminders gone out, having LevelSet sort of take that communication off your plate. So speaking back to Laura and Alex, I'd love to hear from both of you here. Could you share some examples of ways that your customers have been able to cut time spent on any maybe like negative customer encounters since using LevelSet? Maybe how has LevelSet helped cut that time out of the picture, and maybe you've eliminated some negative customer encounters, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Something that's pretty slick about the way LevelSet can work, and that the national companies that I work with use is they can create segments of customers that they want notices to go to, or that they want to send invoice reminders to, for example. And that allows them the control to communicate what they need to communicate when they need to communicate it. So it's not just about protecting the lien rights. It's about, at the beginning, Liam saying send notices on all jobs, and we've had a webinar on this. Sometimes the circumstances in real life, like that's the dream, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes, but it just doesn't happen. And so they're able to control that. So that keeps these long-standing maybe relationships with those customers happy and not confused, and nothing's sort of changed in the relationship. But they can also they also have the ability, when they need to send something friendly, like a friendly invoice reminder, like, hey, this kind of slid by, it's time to go. And if more time passes, they can sort of escalate the language on that to the point of demanding payment, sending a notice of intent, or sending a lien. So it makes it really easy to manage the relationship in that way, and set expectations. There are opportunities to communicate where maybe previously you hadn't thought about that. Or, these larger scale companies, some of them weren't sending payment reminders. So that's really helpful. And I do have kind of like a small case study that I'd like to bring attention to. So I work with one of my customers is a large insulation supplier, and they do a lot of business in Texas. So they have 2 branches located in the same city. that operate a little differently. One of the branches has been a little slower to adopt the help of the software, and they have some of the oldest open invoices in the company. And they're also doing the most work reaching out to customers to say, hey, can you pay us? Alternatively, that other location in the same city in Texas, it just automatically sends these notices and these reminders, and they have the highest return for DSO in the entire organization nationwide. So that is the perfect little case study there, all within the same enterprise company of how the notices not only spend time, but it also kind of gives you that return to shorten that DSO, or the days sales outstanding for you. So that's a win. You know, the customers are happy because they're not being, you know, hounded, payments not being demanded. You're happy because you're getting paid, and so it's a win-win for everyone in that situation.
Yeah, and I can kind of touch on what Laura was saying. Is really one of the big common misconceptions with notices that cause those negative customer encounters is that people fear that sending that notice is going to lead to negativity and just bad feedback from their customers. And that's not necessarily the case. People see the word notice and Lien and get confused about that. And that's where a lot of that comes from. And LevelSet has actually designed their notices with that in mind, to make sure you're being protected up front, but also a strong emphasis on making sure you maintain that customer relationship. And communication is really the key thing there. And they allow you to customize these notices with your company logo, custom messaging, things like that. And one of the biggest components as well is you have the ability to communicate with your customers in the app directly, which allows some more of that, as it would be face-to-face communication, where you're not having to spend hours each week with fielding phone calls and emails from your customers when they receive these notices. Takes that aspect out of it, and you're able to communicate one-on-one directly in app, get things taken care of there. So it's more of a streamlined process. And one of the other really big benefits that a lot of the companies I work with is some kind of standard rollout collateral that LevelSet provides. And it's some letters, descriptions, things like that you can share with your internal team and with your customers whenever you do begin a notice process like this. It helps to explain that new process you're taking on up front. That way, people aren't reaching out to you either in-app or directly via phone or email at work with all kind of questions about what next steps you should be taking.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate sharing that. And then just to kind of summarize everything here, I do want to go into the actual program and show y'all a couple of the, the three things that we discussed here, and the things that Alex and Laura have been mentioning, and how LevelSet can really save you that time and make it more streamlined, and take care of research, and automate and streamline, maybe even payment reminders or whatever it may be. And then afterwards, we'll do a Q&A. So just straight off the bat, this is the dashboard. I know we mentioned about first connecting. Oops. So back to here, I want to show you here integrations and partners. This is where people can directly integrate, maybe QuickBooks. I know that's one of the more common ones. But you'll also see data importing. We can import that data, so you're not having to, double in, manually enter projects, that you're not having to think about, oh, we need to send them on this job. You can really pull over the projects you need to send notices on, or all of them, of course, and get those notices sent out. So I just wanted to start with that. And then and I'll make this brief here. I just wanted to show y'all a little bit of into the program itself. If I were to go to notices, that's sort of the main theme here, is how to save time with all these notices. But I'll understand that when we're talking about lien rights, it might be lien waivers as well. So, you can streamline lien waivers, lien waiver request. If you're a general contractor and needs to request those lien waivers, you can queue all those up and streamline them as well. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to deadline tracking. and you'll see, next deadline information. So this would be like a universal view of all your projects. So you have file your lien in 3 months. You have a preliminary notice in progress, deliver your preliminary notice in 6 days. Now you can add filters, customize these columns here, but essentially this is like a universal view of all those projects. You're going to be notified also additionally, like through an email. You can choose to be notified even more frequently, maybe like 7 days before a notice or whatever, but you'll get also an email every Monday of upcoming notices that are maybe queued up here and also that need to be sent out with like any important deadlines. So what I'm going to do, I'll just click on a project. We'll do this here. So if I were to click on that project, it takes you to the project itself. Has a summary of the information here. So just to create a notice, and this is again a little bit more steps that are actually needed to send notices. I'll show you how we can just queue them all up here with this queue here, right here where it says has a little 9 there. We're going to be able to really queue up all the notices for you to where you don't even need to jump into LevelSet or really at all. You can be as hands-on or hands-off as you need it to be. But just right off the bat, I want to show you all the research verification. In North Carolina, there's something called a notice to lien agent that must be filed. And this is also that cover letter that Alex was mentioning. We have a nice, it's going to say your company name is on your job, a bio about your company logo, who you were hired by, any other stakeholders, and then the statutory information there. And this is actually a notice that I believe needs to be sent, but also I know it has to be filed. So we'll take care of all those steps. So to send it, what's really cool is you can send it without having to know that information. So just click I don't know, and we will verify that for you. Our research team is going to get to work, Scott Research, and we're going to have all that found and all prepared. And it's as easy as hitting next, create document, and then we're going to send it out. And then that's just a preliminary notice. There's so much that we can help you send. We mentioned like invoice reminders. So you got, the preliminary notices. If you're not paid on time, maybe an intent to lien. We even have, reminders. I'm not going to go through and show you all these, but just wanted to show you, really how flexible LevelSet is. We have friendly demand letters, threatening demand letters, more serious demand letters. You can really, create that process to where you're being as respectful to the relationship, but also firm in your collection process, in your lien rights process. So all these notices, really, once we get your project information, we can queue them all up for you to where, maybe you just come in here for the week, you see you got 9 notices to send out, check that box, hit approve, and it's sent out. Or maybe, you have a specific one you want to snooze. You can snooze that or cancel it. And again, like maybe you don't even want, maybe you're going on vacation or there's other things to do than log into LevelSet for that week, whatever. We can have it be fully automated to where, it's just sent out. Whatever combinations, different flavors of automation you want, we can make it as hands-on or hands-off as you need it to be. So that's just a little bit of some insight into LevelSet for people that maybe aren't familiar with the program. Happy to also, you're going to get our contact information. I'm happy to walk through it specifically with you to show you maybe what it would look like for your business specifically and go into a little bit more detail. But I did just want to show you all that just so you can kind of get a an understanding of what we're all talking about here. I think that goes into our last section here. We have about maybe 8 minutes or so for any questions, any Q&A. So feel free to throw them in here and we will get to answering them. And it can be anything.
Hey, Liam.
Yeah.
Piper here from LevelSet. Hi, everyone. I was just gonna tell you 2 questions that we had in the chat. earlier in the presentation because I'd love for y'all to speak on them. The first one is from Victoria, and she asked, we are a supplier and our customers don't always give us the job information. Can we use inventory or warehouse as job information? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm assuming basically your supply, you get the product, you get the product order, and basically you don't have like job information. I'd be curious to hear Laura and Alex. I know that you deal with this more so directly at this stage. I mean, I'm curious to know what maybe y'all's thoughts would be on this question. This is a little bit further down the line.
Right. Yeah, I see this every so often, especially when bringing a new LevelSet partner on board. They'll have the jobs where they're sending it, say, to a development, and they know what like say a subdivision, and they know what that subdivision is, and they know what lots are involved, and they know that each one is going to get a hot water heater, for example, and those might have serial numbers on them, so all that can be tracked. And ultimately, what is so important about sending notices and protecting lien rights is knowing where that's going. So the warehouse and inventory thing presents a challenge in which there may need to be a business process switch when placing the order, asking where is this to be installed, because my customers too, their customers will do bulk orders and stash it in a warehouse, and they'll never know what happened to that. But when they say, okay, so you're making this bulk order, where's it going or how is it being allocated, then there's a better idea for that. So it is a challenge, and it's a challenge that we work with our partners to kind of pivot the point of sale a little bit, to ask that additional question, where is this going? Because that property where it's to be installed or used is key to the underlying lien right protection.
Yeah, and I can piggyback off what Laura said. That's a lot of the customers I work with, that's situations that they're in. And as Laura said, having that core job site information, so where it's actually being installed, is going to be what's key, because if you were to happen to run into any payment issues down the line and did have to escalate with the mechanics lien, the lien itself would be filed against the property where it was installed, not necessarily where you delivered the materials to. So a little bit of a change of pace to get that information up front. But just that job site information is really the key thing that you would need, because with our scout research team, like we touched on a little earlier, once we have that key information, we're able to help you locate things like the property owner, legal property description, to make sure that you are being fully protected on those.
I will say too, because Victoria, I see your follow-up comment that you sell to road construction companies and there's no specific property to list. If there is ever, and this applies to any kind of company where maybe you don't know specifics, if you have any sorts of landmarks, cross streets, whatever information you can get from your customer, our scout research team uses that. If you've been on another webinar from us, you may have heard that one time we found a property based on a really unique tree. And they were just like, our partners told us, hey, there's this tree and it's sort of here somewhere. And we were able to identify the property so that they could protect their lien. So, there are going to be pieces of highway that are going to be worked on. There are going to be, like sidewalks and stuff like that. All of that can be researched so long as we know something. Like if it's a public job, it might have like a public bid or job number, something like that. And that's something that our research team can go research.
Another question came in earlier. Who was it from? I think it was from Lori. Yeah, Lori asked, can you pick and choose which notices are actually prepared and sent? I know we touched on this a little bit, but can you elaborate again on some of the customization options when it comes to automation?
Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit. So I know specifically also with QuickBooks, and I don't want to just talk about QuickBooks here. I know there's so many different accounting softwares, but we, LevelSet is the program itself. We make it very easy for y'all to, your account manager, your training and onboarding manager, they're going to sit down with you. And if there is any specific job that you don't want to notice to be sent out on, or maybe you don't want it even pulled over into LevelSet, they can set customizations to where those jobs are not engaged, or they're not even being pulled over in LevelSet. If they are pulled over, we can delete them. That's one of the beauties with, I think with our training and onboarding team, one of the benefits, beauties, that's kind of an interesting word choice, benefits of having our training and onboarding team is that we really sit down with you, and it's a really testimony to why our reviews are what they are, is because that training and onboarding manager is going to sit down with you. They're going to get this set up for you. So if there is any of those specific jobs that you don't want pulled over or don't want send notices on, they'll make sure that that's the case. So I know we spoke about, saying notices on all jobs. We're big fans of that. We think it's important. We see the value in it. But I know Laura even mentioned, maybe sometimes it's not in a perfect world. It might not come up. And, we get that. We're not going to force you to do that. So, we'll work with you. That's a good question. Do we have any more? I didn't know if Laura and Alex wanted to touch on that, but I don't know if we have any more questions.
I'll just say real quick that, Liam when he was showing you the software, he showed you the queue. And even in that gives you some control over whether or not you want to send a particular notice that's set to go out. So that's a beautiful example, or that is maybe to help Liam, the beauty of the way the automation is set up.
All right, I think that brings us to time, Liam, if you want to close us out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everyone here for attending. Again, we will send you a recording. I believe our information is going to be on that email as well. If not, you can reply to that email. We'll get it. If you guys have any specific questions, or you want to see how specifically LevelSet would work for you. I know there's a lot of information we threw out here today. We wanted to make it as beautiful as possible, show you the beauty of it all. But no, I appreciate y'all attending, and continue to look into more webinars we host. We host webinars from anywhere between, credit managers, suppliers, legal webinars with the construction attorneys. We have a lot that we host, that we do. So always come back to us. We love hosting these, and I appreciate y'all's time. And thank you, Alex and Laura, again, for joining in here as well and giving those insights about your customers.
It's been fun. Thanks for having us, and thanks y'all for asking your questions and sharing your experiences.